Good morning, and welcome to the First Parish Church of Stow and Acton, a welcoming and spiritual community. My name is Neil Saunders, and I serve as chair of the Worship Committee. For those visiting FPC for the first time, we welcome you. Please let us know you were here by filling out one of the visitor information cards in the pews and hand it to an usher, drop it in the plate, or hand it to me after the service. Our minister, staff, and board are listed in the front of your order of service. Please feel free to ask me or any of these people for more information about our church. If you would like a large print order of service or a hymnal or an assisted listening device, you can also ask one of our ushers. Our assisted listening devices are small radios. Anyone is welcome to use one of these to listen to the service from another space in or around our building. After the service, please join us for coffee and conversation in our fellowship hall, which is one level down at the other end of our building, to my left, or in a breakout room if you're joining us online. I'd like to draw your attention to the announcements in our order of service and also invite you to check out our webpage for more information. You can also sign up there for our newsletter and email alerts. One announcement that is not in your order of service is that after the service, you'll have another opportunity to write postcards to your senators and representatives, urging them to demand an immediate permanent ceasefire in Gaza and Israel in order to protect the lives of all civilians and allow for all necessary humanitarian assistance to be delivered. And I will read this reminder that the very exciting Upcycled Art Show is coming in less than a week. As you know, FPC has a vibrant artistic community and spirit here, and many recall how much fun our art show was last year. This year is sure to be even better, with a variety of artists using old things to make new beauty. A labyrinth to explore, a craft table activity using recycled materials, another fabulous trivia game, and a swap table where you can drop off 2 to 3 items of clothing and go home with 2 to 3 new items of clothing. So come and join us and bring your family next Saturday, that's March the 23rd, from 7 to 9 p.m. in the Fellowship Hall. We'll be looking forward to seeing you there. Now, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker for today's service. Johanna Ambrosio-LaPlant has been a member of our partner church, Marlborough-Hudson, for the past 30 years, and she is currently president of its executive board. Johanna is a retired journalist who now spends her time training for hands-on reproductive rights assistance, gardening, finishing her book, and serving meals to folks in Marlborough where she lives. welcome Johanna. And now, please take a few moments to greet your neighbor.
Good morning, and thank you again for inviting me to your pulpit. I truly appreciate the warm welcome I've received here. Today I'm going to talk about how I found my chosen family, which I've been calling my tribe for many years. But I understand that term might be offensive to some, and I'm working hard to avoid using it. If I slip, please forgive me, and know that I use the word with love and respect, and no intent of appropriating anyone else's identity. We can call it our chosen family, our heart community, our network, and any other term that works for us. The pandemic has, in many ways, worked against this notion of community. If anything, it's taught us how to be more comfortable in isolation. Many of us got used to solitude, as Arthur C. Brooks recently wrote in The Atlantic. It's a habit we need to break, he says. I will tell you my story about how I came to find my true heart community, a good part of that accidentally, and share advice from psychologists and others for anyone seeking to find their people. Our opening words come from Sharon Wylie in her poem, You Are Never Alone. It is okay to be tired of change. It is okay to be tired of everything different. Okay to feel weary of resiliency and wholeness and learning and growth. And okay to simply yearn for rest. It's okay to be grouchy and unsatisfied, and all the ordinary human ways of being what we are. Let this morning be a reminder that you are loved. Let our time together soothe what is restless in you. May you be comforted in knowing that whatever you are feeling today and on other days, you are not alone. You are never alone. Come, let us worship together. Our chalice lighting words come from the Reverend Scott Tayler. Pulled in many directions by the demands of our days, we light this chalice to remind us of the still point deep inside, made unsteady by the winds of unpredictable paths. We light this chalice to remember the shelter of each other, longing for lights that lead us back to our truest selves. We kindle this chalice to illuminate the faces of friends and sacred companions, recalling once again that we find our way through the willingness to take each other's hand. And now, if you would join us, standing in body or in spirit, for hymn number 402 in the gray hymnal, From You I Receive. And I'm going to ask something a little wacky. If you could just stand and face each other, either across the aisles or in the pew, and sing to each other. However you do it, if you wouldn't mind. We're going to sing it through 3 times. And after that, please remain standing for reciting the covenant and affirmation. Thank you for indulging that. Please remain standing. We're going to be reciting our covenant and affirmation. Sorry, that got lost in the sauce there. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
We acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional lands of the Nipmuc. They were not the only inhabitants of this land, but were the ones we acknowledge as having been wrongfully removed from it. As Unitarian Universalists, our faith calls us to work towards right relations and reduction of harm. We acknowledge the unfair removal of these first inhabitants, recognizing that there is no clear plan for what right relations means and what steps should be taken next. But we begin by remembering the lives that were taken, that all lives are worthy, and that all peoples should be able to live with dignity, and that we strive to continue to do better through each generation. May it be so.
Good morning. I would like to invite anyone of any age to join me up front for a story. So this morning we have a very, 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 very loose interpretation of The Ugly Duckling by Hans Christian Andersen. There was a mother duck who had laid some eggs. She had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 beautiful eggs, and a very, very, very strange 5th egg. A few days went by, and the mother says, when will my ducklings hatch? And one by one, our beautiful, tiny, 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 beautiful ducks hatch. Well, Mama Duck was still waiting for this big duck to hatch. And a few days later, out pops, can you open that for me? A very large and very strange duck. Mama Duck said, oh, but I still love you, right? So all the little ducks get in the water and they swim, all so sweet and gently, following Mama Duck. And in plops our kind of clunky, awkward duck, right? And the duck sibling said, you know, you're kind of different. And you're kind of strange, and we don't think we want to play with you. So sad, sad duck goes away, and he finds a farm. And the farmer says, it's an interesting little critter, but as long as it gives me some eggs, right, I will take you in. Well, in comes Mama Hen, and she's like, I am the only chick laying eggs in this place. You are not welcomed here. So, as our little duck progresses, he also begins to grow and change. And he happens upon a beautiful pond with all these lovely trees and the most beautiful creatures he had ever seen. And the creatures were like, we are flying south for the winter. Would you like to join us? Well, they can't mean me, right? Everyone else abandons me, right? Shoos me off because I'm so odd and so different. So as he got closer and closer to the water, he realized there was a creature very close to him. It was himself. And he thought he was beautiful. But he looked like all the other creatures that were beautiful as well. And he says, well, you only want me to go with you because now I'm beautiful like you. No, they said, we accept anyone who wants to travel south with us. I'm not sure because you all are so beautiful and I'm only accepted now because I am beautiful. Nope, that's not true, said the flying spider. I am traveling south with them as well. So am I, said the flying squirrel. I am not as colorful, but I am accepted as well. I too am accepted, said the flying skunk, even though I don't smell as good as everyone else. And lastly, out pops our beetle, who says, I too go south for the winter, and I too have been accepted. So, even if you don't look like everyone else, here at USH, right, no matter how different we are, right, we are all accepted here. Which one of you wants to light our chalice today? Tommy?
I'll now ask Anne Wickham, our lay minister, to come forward for joys and sorrows.
Thanks, Neil. Good morning. Every once in a while, we like to remind folks about us lay ministers here at FPC. As you know, we support Cindy in all things pastoral care, whether that be a listening ear, a walk, a ride, meals, or even to celebrate something. So there are 5 of us, myself, Kate Hart, Ann Sadler, Ingrid Holcomb, and Hector Constanzos. We have an email address, and you're also just welcome to reach out to each of us.
Okay, let's light 2 final candles. One for peace throughout the world, especially in Ukraine and the Middle East, and one for all those joys and sorrows that are held within us but remain unspoken.
The Reverend Dr. Richard S. Gilbert wrote, "In the holy quiet of this hour, this is sacred time that cannot be taken from us. These few minutes of calm in an often hectic week, this island of serenity in an ocean of events, this peaceful interlude in the midst of a warring world. We are here to receive the blessings of life, the memories that drift across our minds, the hopes harbored in these few moments, the dreams we dare to conjure in the magic of this time." I now invite you to join with us in hymn number 352 in the gray hymnal, if you would stand in body or in spirit. Our reading is taken from Anna Quinlan's book, Being Perfect. Someday, sometime, you will be sitting somewhere, a berm overlooking a pond in Vermont, the lip of the Grand Canyon at sunset, a seat on the subway, and something bad will have happened. You will have lost someone you loved, or failed at something at which you badly wanted to succeed. And sitting there, you will fall into the center of yourself. You will look for some core to sustain you. And if you have been perfect all your life and have managed to meet all the expectations of your family, your friends, your community, your society, chances are excellent that there will be a black hole where that core used to be. I don't want anyone I know to take that terrible chance. And the only way to avoid it is to listen to that small voice inside you that tells you to make mischief, to have fun, to be contrarian, to go another way. George Eliot wrote, "It is never too late to be what you might have been. It is never too early either." For the month of March, our weekly offering is being shared with UU Mass Action, which is our Massachusetts State Action Network that organizes and mobilizes 25,000 UUs and 142 congregations to confront oppression and create equity throughout our state. Your generous contributions will now be gratefully received. I was in my mid-30s before I found my true heart community, the people that I am most able to be myself around. These are the people who accept me for who I am, flaws and all, and who inspire me to do my best and be my best. And they call me on it when I'm not. I think it took me a while to get to this point because I needed to figure out who I was and what beliefs were central to me before I could find the people I felt most comfortable around. Where I started is not where I ended up, although that change came with some loss and sadness, like the ugly duckling in our children's story. The people in my childhood world of East New York, Brooklyn, had rough hands and even rougher speech. And they had nicknames like Railroad Patsy and Cowboy Joey. Skinny guys were called Fatso, and slim guy and portly men were Slim. Most women didn't have nicknames, well, not in public anyway. Nobody was called Michael or Angela or James, even if that really was their name. It was Mikey or Angie or Jimmy. Women stayed home and tended to the house and the kids. If they worked at all outside, it was mother's hours at a local department store or as a secretary in a doctor's office. They were home by 3 p.m. when the school bus dropped the kids off. Dinner was put on the table when the husband got home from work. And most of the women had special dishes that gained them renown throughout the neighborhood. Aunt Anna's white clam sauce, Aunt Julie's shrimp diavolo, my mom's pot roast. One of our neighbors, Mrs. Tomborello, was a nurse. She was the only professional woman I knew as a kid. Over the years, she had patched us all up at one point or another while we sat on top of her washing machine. No whining allowed. The men were construction workers, pressmen, subway conductors, firemen, or they worked in the garment district in Manhattan. My dad built and repaired sewers. He came home so stinky most nights that Mom made him strip down to his tighty-whities in the garage before coming into the main house. Most of our neighbors saw Dad in his underwear at one point or another. When someone died, even someone you'd never met, but was a relative or friend of someone you did know, you went to the wake and then brought a pan of lasagna or something else to eat to the family's home. This level of respect and support was unspoken, but expected. Most of the men knew how to do things beyond their full-time jobs: fix the house, repair the car, find something that someone needed. Midnight auto supply was really a thing. People knew people. And people helped each other. Electricians, plumbers, construction workers would help friends and neighbors, all for the cost of parts and supplies and a good meal as they were working at your place. Nobody even thought of charging for labor. That's not how the block economy worked. You'd help them in return or make your teenage daughter babysit for them for what felt like a year, or at least give them a really nice bottle of something. All the adults drank alcohol. Everyone had a bar in their house and remembered that Uncle Tony drank a 7 and 7. Aunt Lucy was good for 1 glass of Chianti tops before she got too drunk to make dinner. And my dad took his scotch neat. And yes, the older kids would sneak 1 or 2 when they thought nobody was looking. Kids of all ages hung around together, and the older ones were expected to look after the younger ones, or at least make sure they were returned alive to their parents. Look after being a pretty squishy term. Most kids hung out in each other's postage stamp-sized backyards on cheap lawn chairs held together with duct tape. Or we'd play pickup baseball on the street with sewer covers as bases, or play stickball on the stoop. Living rooms with their plastic-covered furniture were strictly off limits to us kids. Sometimes we formed really bad bands. After all, this was the 60s and early 70s, and we rehearsed in someone's basement or garage. The sight of people walking down the street in nice weather with their hands covering their ears was not uncommon. We all ate at each other's houses, and everyone was welcome for dinner and at holidays. Wherever you were at 6 o'clock or when the woman of the house called dinner is where you ate. You shared what you had, did favors when asked, and minded the pecking order. There was always a boss. Everywhere from the neighborhood bar to the priests of the Catholic Church we all went to, St. Michael's. When an adult told you to do something or to stop doing something, you listened. It was not a democracy, and everyone did not get a vote. Arguments between kids were settled in the streets or in the schoolyard, and nobody interfered unless it was an unfair situation. That was just life. After high school, you were expected to do what your parents or other family members did, and very little of that involved any further formal education. Maybe middle school or hairdresser training for girls, and a trade school for boys so they could learn to be a plumber or electrician or mechanic. Many of my classmates joined the Army or Marines. But then I broke the mold and went off to college, the second one in my entire extended family, and the only girl to do so. I have my mother to thank for that. She had insisted from the time I can remember that I would be college-bound. And even though I had to pay most of my own way through college, I was extremely lucky. Most of my relatives had to leave school to work to support the family, and many didn't even graduate from high school. So college was really out of the experience realm of pretty much everyone I knew. And Buddy, my one other cousin who had gone to college before me, was 10 years my senior and already a superstar on Wall Street. No pressure. When I was accepted to college, at first everyone was very proud and positive and celebratory. But then I started coming home for breaks, and the invisible walls went up in my absence. When I tried striking up a conversation, people weren't as open or as friendly, and nobody really asked about my experiences or how college was going. It was the same old jokes, the same memories, the same not-so-subtle prejudices against anyone who was different. And truth to tell, I no longer found the same things funny or okay, or even pretended to. I no longer called the only openly gay person I knew Myra the Dyke, like everyone else did. Just Myra, and I got looks for that. And for the longest time, I couldn't use the word melanzana, which means eggplant in Italian. It's also a derogatory term for Black people, used by most everyone I knew in my old neighborhood. My world was getting bigger, and I was changing too. It wasn't that I thought I was smarter than anyone else. I wasn't, and I still truly believe that. But I was exposed to more ideas, and I was learning about the world and the people in it. I was meeting fellow students from other countries and hearing their stories, so different from my own. This gave me courage to spread my wings. In April 1990, I took a bus down to Washington, D.C. and joined the Women's March, 500,000 strong. There was even talk back then that the Supreme Court would overturn Roe v. Wade, and the idea was to show them how people felt. So I was marching along, getting farther toward the outside of the marchers, when a person from the other side of the issue came toward me looking like he was going to grab me or push me. Being a good Brooklyn girl, I got ready to rumble. But before I could, I felt someone else grab hold of my shirt and pull me back toward the middle of the women's marchers, back toward safety. It took me a few minutes to realize what had happened, but when I did, I saw he was part of a group carrying a sign that said, "Gay Men for Women's Rights." And I asked him, "What in the world are you guys doing here?" And he said, "For the same reason you are. One person's rights really are everyone's rights. And we're hoping that by supporting you, you will support us." And I've become a strong LGBTQ+ ally thanks to him. I'm so grateful to him not only for saving my bacon, but for opening my eyes to show how one group's struggle is really all of ours. About this time, I was starting to formulate my beliefs that we are all connected somehow through stardust or something, that there is good in most people, and that we all have something to learn from each other. This is all very different from the rigid theistic belief system I grew up with, which is why I could no longer participate in it. There was no place for women in the church of my childhood. And to be fair, in the past 40 years, the Catholics have opened up some roles for females that were not available back in my day. But my developing spiritual beliefs was another source of difference from virtually everyone I knew in my childhood. What nobody could tell me back then is that college would require me to change my heart community. My roots will always be blue collar, and I am very grateful for the work ethic, seat of the pants problem solving, sense of community, and other values my childhood instilled in me. But I'm no longer totally comfortable in that world either. And while I was away, a funny thing happened. My mother changed tribes too. She married John, a college professor and an electrical engineer. He was a really good guy who brought so very much to our lives. I like to think of this changing world as an expanded community with intersecting circles that overlap ever so slightly, if only rarely. I've been very fortunate that over these years, these circles have continued to grow. When I moved up to New England for a job, met my wonderful husband, Ken, found the Unitarian Church, and made some deep and long-lasting friendships at work and in church. Then, just a few years ago, I found my birth mother's family and went to visit them in upstate New York. This group of people also has blue-collar roots, but are educated, even if not formally. They believe that everyone deserves to be happy and are open to the possibilities and life's potential. They love everyone in their circle, even if they don't always agree with them. At this point in my life, I feel I am blessed with people I love and who know me and accept the real me. Some are in this church right now. Psychologists and other experts tell us that it's important to have a community in your lives. Many of us have multiple networks, people we know in different contexts, work, home, family, closest friends, neighbors. Some of these circles overlap. If you're fortunate, you have your sisters and brothers can be among your closest friends too. The idea is to have someone you can be real with in some context. But online friends are not the same as those in real life. Yes, online is something, it's better than nothing, but as the pandemic has shown, we need in-person connections to be our happiest. A good friend moved to a new state around 10 years ago. She recently posted on Facebook about how hard it's been for her to make true friends where she lives now. She now has expanded her circle in large part by joining a UU church, and she's so much more content now. So if you're like my friend and are looking to find your people, there are things you can do. Look around for clubs. There's a ton of things happening in our back door right here in Metro West. Photography, gardening, activities at senior centers that include exercise, movies, and men's clubs. You don't need to go far. And for those not of a certain age, classes at Assabet Valley or Framingham State are pretty affordable and quite varied. You can learn something you've always wanted to try as you're meeting new people who share your interests. Also, accept invitations when friends invite you to do things. It can be tempting to stay home and read a book, but push aside your concerns, say yes, and embrace the possibilities. Consider volunteering. There's nothing like giving back to remind us how much in our lives we have to be grateful for. And you're likely to meet other good-hearted people who care about a cause that you do. If you do go online, look for meetups or other local in-person events that call to you. If you're more adventurous, consider joining clubs in Boston that feature theater or other arts, or walking tours around the Greenway or other places. There is so much available that you're likely to find something that you'll enjoy. Not to say this is easy. All of this is hard to do, and it gets even more difficult as we get older and more set in our ways. It takes courage at any age. Do what you love, and you will inevitably meet people who share that passion. Life can be lonely indeed without a community, whether that's 1 or 2 people or 24. Numbers don't matter. One of the best things I ever did to find my people was to join the Unitarian Church in Hudson. I have learned from them all, and you, about the importance of continuing to push myself to learn new things, even when I don't really feel like it, to listen with an open heart and mind, and to be really, truly present in difficult conversations. I've learned the blessings of standing with others in community for the values that are important in our world. I've learned to sight read music, well, sort of. I've learned that it's okay to have fun and laugh a lot, but never at another person's expense. That it's okay to be kind and to give back to the world without being branded a wuss or worse. That the world is wonderful and worth exploring, even if parts of it are scary too. Here's an example that shows the stark difference between where I came from and where I am now. Last year, my husband Ken and I went down to New York on vacation, and we stayed at a hotel in downtown Brooklyn. I called my cousin Vinny, yes, that is his name, even if he goes by Vincent these days. We wanted to see if he'd be free to get together for a meal. He lives in Queens and does have a car, but when I asked him if he'd like to come to Brooklyn to eat, his response, much cleaned up, was, "Why would I want to do that? We can go to Lenny's Clam Bar here in my neighborhood." So we wound up meeting Vinny in Queens on our way back home to Massachusetts. When my dad asked his sister if she wanted to go on vacation with him to Puerto Rico, she responded, "Why do I need to go there? I got all the Puerto Ricans I could need right outside my window." True story. I say this not to criticize my family, whom I love dearly, but just to illustrate how small a world it can be, even in a very big city. So I'm here to tell you, it's okay to change heart communities if you're not getting what you need or feel less than fulfilled. Take a deep breath and take the plunge. My life, thanks to you all, has truly opened up. I would not be who I am without you, and I am profoundly grateful to all of you for being part of my community. Amen, and blessed be, and may it ever be so. Now, if you would stand in body or in spirit and join us for hymn number 1064 in the Teal hymnal, Blue Boat Home.
Universe is the
Our closing words are from the Reverend Dr. Danielle DeBona. Danielle DeBona, I'm sorry. It is a good day. Breathe. Take a breath and feel the weight of the world lift from your body. Remember that you survived. No, thrived. Find your deep soul. Hold it in your hands and thank it. Thank that soul for its protection and power. We have survived. We are not the same, yet we have survived, battered and bruised. It is a good day. Breathe. Take a breath and feel the weight of the world lift from your body. Let your heart be filled with peace. Let us each, in our own way, offer thanks to that which is most holy for its protection and love. Amen, and blessed be.